Hello there, this is Kimmy. Welcome back. You are listening to the, like you didn't already know, Always Talking Crime podcast. Like, I'm sure you were super stoked when you knew there was going to be a new episode available and you just could not wait to hear it. Well, here it is. This is a case that I knew I was going to cover. Even when I was toying around with the idea of starting a true crime podcast, this was on my list of cases to do ASAP. And it hit really close to home for me because in the time span that this murder took place, my third child, I have 4 grown children right now, my youngest daughter was around the same age as the girls in this story, maybe a year behind. So it just really strikes me as being very scary because I know even to this day, some kids are assholes and bully situations can be brutal. And this particular story took it to a whole new level. So trigger warning on bullying and obviously trigger warning on murder. Let's get on with it, shall we? All right, guys, let's get started. I have got my glass of the Snoop Dogg 19 crimes. I'm not going to say 21 crimes this time like I did on an episode in the past. So if you are from 19 Crimes or know anybody in charge of 19 Crimes, 19 Crimes, you need to sponsor me. I literally love you, and I literally probably buy many, many bottles of your wine every month, week, weekend, weekdays. You get the picture. But anyways, this is my particular favorite, along with the 19 Crimes, the Warden. They are so good. So if you are a lover of red wines, like red blends, check those out. And again, 19 Crimes, you better fucking sponsor me one of these days because I am probably one of your best customers. So anyways, guys, I've had a rough day and I was going to wait to record this episode tomorrow. But I just knew that doing this and checking it off of my to-do list ahead of time was going to make me feel so much better. This month, March has literally been kind of brutal for me and kind of stressful at my job that I do full time. And I feel like I don't have enough time to do everything. Yet when I'm at my job, it's been busy, but yet it's been boring, if that makes sense. And sometimes when I'm sitting there in my downtime, I'm feeling like motherfucker. I'm missing out. I'm wasting time. I could be doing so many other things. But on the positive side of things, let's just look at the bright side, which I always like to do. I have a lot of time at work at my desk that I can start doing research on a lot of these cases. So, today, for instance, I was already doing research and taking notes on next week's episode. So, yeah. So I guess, I'm kind of blessed to be so bored, to have the time to get a salary and, still be able to do research and get in my true crime obsession to share with y'all. So anyways, let's get started. This is the story, the case of Skylar Neese. Skylar Neese was a 16-year-old honor student with a bright future ahead of her. She loved to read, she had an active social life, and like most teens, she was all about posting her thoughts on social media. Skylar was an avid user of both Facebook and Twitter. And like little side note, like when it comes to Twitter, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like I always joke to people that when it comes to Twitter, I'm like such a twit, or you could say I'm a big twat. I know nothing about Twitter. I've tried it before in the past, and I may as well be trying to speak like a whole nother language, like fucking Japanese or something, and I don't know Japanese. So I do not know anything on how Twitter works. It doesn't make any kind of sense to me, but Skylar was a total fan of it. Skylar was also a student at University High School who wanted to become a criminal defense lawyer. She had a cute puppy dog. She played the flute in her high school band, and she also had a part-time job at a local Wendy's. Yum! And reportedly never missed a day of work. Skylar was born on February 10th, 1996, and was the only child of Mary and Dave Neese. At that time, Mary worked as an administrative assistant in a cardiac lab, and David was a product assembler at Walmart. On July 5th, 2012, Skylar returned to her family's home in Star City, West Virginia. They lived in an apartment, and she returned home after working a shift at Wendy's. Her apartment complex's surveillance video shows Skylar leaving the apartment by sneaking out her bedroom window at 12:30 a.m. on the early morning of July 6th. And it shows her getting into the back seat of a sedan. In the morning, Skylar's parents found the bench outside her bedroom window along with her window screen, which Skylar had placed inside her closet to hide it. Her father, Dave, noticed that Skylar did not take her cell phone charger. Her window was left open, and to him, it looked like she was obviously planning on coming home soon. They trusted Skylar. That's the main thing. Like, they had trust in her. She proved trust to her parents over and over again, and neither parent at that time was too concerned that she wasn't home. They just figured she was just going to show up and she was going to have to work later so they would see her. Now, they weren't too concerned at the time, but this all changed later that day when Skylar did not show up for work. This was definitely a first for the responsible teen. When they hung up the phone after speaking to Skylar's shift manager, Mary and Dave were now so very worried and immediately reported their daughter missing. So, an Amber Alert was not issued in Skylar's disappearance, which sucks. I mean, it might not have changed the outcome once you hear what happened, but it still sucks that they didn't do it. The circumstances for West Virginia, those circumstances did not meet all 4 criteria for an Amber Alert to be issued. So here are the 4 criteria. The first one is a child is believed to be abducted. The second one, the child is under 18. The third one, the child may be in danger of death or serious injury. And 4, there is sufficient information to indicate the Amber Alert would be helpful. Now, I don't know about you guys, but to me, it sounded like Skylar did indeed meet all 4 of those criteria for an Amber Alert to be issued. Because how do you know whether she could have been abducted or not? So I guess it was because she snuck out her bedroom window and and the surveillance showed that she just got into a car willingly, I think that's why. Because the child is under 18 and she could have been in the danger of death or serious injury because she didn't come home. And 4, there is sufficient information to indicate an Amber Alert would have been helpful. So fuck those guys. Like, I don't agree with the fact that they did not issue one. As I continue with the story, like, we will find that it wouldn't have even mattered. But at the same time, it really irritates me that it was not, an Amber Alert was not issued. So anyways, a waiting period of 48 hours had to elapse before a teenager could be considered missing. Like, could you imagine, like, having your teenager be missing and the cops tell you, oh, well, we can't do anything because she probably just ran away. So we have to wait for 48 hours to see if she shows up. Like, the first 24 hours, guys, are the most fucking crucial, aren't they? So for them to have this 48-hour waiting period just seems honestly insane to me. So I don't know. Hopefully you all agree with me. And if you don't, oh, well, I still love you. Please keep listening. So anyways, Dave and Mary reached out to Skylar's best friend. Her name was Shoaf and Eddy. And Shelia proceeded to tell them that she, Skylar, and their other friend, Rachel Shoaf, had snuck out the night before. She stated that they had driven around Star City, they were getting high, and that the 2 girls had dropped Skylar back off at the house afterwards. Shelia told them that they had dropped Skylar off at the end of the road because Skylar didn't want to wake up her mom and dad when she was sneaking back into the house, which totally makes sense. I don't know if y'all have ever snuck out at night when you guys were teenagers. I know I did. I snuck out. There was actually a drive-in movie theater. I lived like in this neighborhood off of the highway, and it was alongside the waterfront. So it was like a really cool place to grow up. But when you walked across the highway, there was this drive-in movie theater, which was so cool. Like, I was a teenager in the 80s, so you know. But it was such a blast. And if my parents didn't let me out, or if I was grounded or whatever, I would just sneak up my bedroom window and go do what I wanted to do and then come back in. Or I would sneak friends or boyfriends into my bedroom window whenever, you know, that seemed possible as well. So I was a good kid, but like, I did stuff like that. Like, it's just, I think it's kind of normal for, you know, for kids to sneak in and out and all that kind of stuff. So, unfortunately, you know, Skylar just didn't come home after doing this that night. So anyways, that story from Shelia held up for a little while. That is, until the best friends seemed to implicate themselves. Shelia Eddy claimed that she and Rachel Shoaf picked up Skylar Neese at 11 p.m. and then dropped Skylar back off just before midnight. But like I already mentioned, there was a surveillance video, and that video proved otherwise. The grainy footage showed Skylar Neese leaving her apartment through the window at 12:30 a.m. and pulling away at 12:35 a.m. and was never seen again. There was no surveillance footage of Skylar leaving at 11 p.m. and coming back into the house. Shelia Ray Eddy was born on September 28th, 1995. And she was born in Blacksville, West Virginia. She was the only child of Tara and Greg Eddy. Rachel Shoaf was born on June 10th, 1996. She grew up in Morgantown, and she was the only daughter of Rusty and Patricia Shoaf. Both of these perpetrators attended University High School along with Skylar Neese. Skylar first met Shelia when the two were in elementary school, and Rachel didn't arrive into the friendship until their freshman year of high school. The trio was inseparable, And Skylar was said to have served as an emotional rock for the other two girls, as both Shelia and Rachel both had parents who had divorced. Skylar, however, was an only child, and her parents wanted every single thing for her. They loved her so much. They nurtured her intelligence, and they encouraged her to be her own person. Skylar thought she could save her, said Mary Neese of her daughter's relationship with Shoaf and Eddy. I would hear her on the phone giving Shelia all kinds of hell. Like, don't be stupid. What were you thinking? On the other hand, Shelia was so much fun. She was always silly and doing crazy stuff. Shoaf and Eddy, the fun-loving girl in the trio, was open arms accepted by Mary and Dave as if she was one of their own children. Shelia didn't even knock on the door when she came over. She just went on in the house. Rachel Shoaf, on the other hand, was the exact polar opposite of Shelia. Though she was well-liked and enjoyed acting in school plays, she came from a strict Catholic family, and she seemed to idolize Shelia for her somewhat wild and carefree attitude. And although Skylar and Shelia had formerly been inseparable, Rachel's arrival allegedly drove a wedge between the two girls. Thanks to the trio's many social media posts, and I mean many, it ultimately became clear that there were underlying tensions with each other. Skylar tweeted things like this on May 31st, 2012. You're a two-faced bitch and obviously fucking stupid if you thought I wouldn't find out. Another tweet from that spring said, too bad my friends are having lives without me, which sounds like super passive-aggressive, but come on, Skylar's a teenage girl. Some grown adults are on Facebook, which I like to call fake book. I have to be on Facebook all the time for network marketing and social networking and all that kind of stuff. And if I could never go on Facebook again, I'd probably be very, very, very happy. But there's so many times I see grown ass adults, in their 40s, 50s, acting all passive aggressive like this too. It just is so funny yet annoying at the same time. But anyways, so Skylar's just being a typical teenage girl, it sounds like. It appeared to Skylar as though Shoaf, Eddy, and Rachel Shoaf were becoming closer friends without her. So she was starting to feel alienated. Between July 6th, 2012, when Skylar went missing, and January 16th, 2013, when police discovered Skylar's remains. I know, that's super sad. Shelia spoke to Neese's parents every single day, calling so much that Dave, quote, unquote, thought Shelia genuinely cared. Shelia asked for updates in the case. She helped put up missing person posters, and she even assisted in the search. Shelia and her mother helped to canvass the neighborhood for Skylar on July 7th. Meanwhile, Rachel Shoaf had left to go off to her Catholic summer camp for 2 weeks. So immediately, the day after Skylar went missing, there's still no body at this point, Rachel left to go to Catholic summer camp for 2 weeks. Now, rumors started to swirl that Skylar had gone to a house party and overdosed on heroin, which is crazy, but it's a small town, and I'm originally from a very, very, very small town in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I could just see how, rumors, somebody will say one thing, maybe off the cuff, or maybe this really happened and it was a different person. Obviously not Skylar, but rumors spread like wildfire. It's just super, super crazy, especially in a small town. But anyways, Corporal Ronnie Gaskins, one of the investigators in this case, said that people told him the teenager attended a party and died. People there panicked, and they supposedly disposed of the body. So, throughout the fall of 2012, authorities were investigating Shelia and Rachel. For good reason, right? I'm sure you're like getting the feeling that they are on the right track of this investigation. During questioning, both of the girls showed physical signs of lying. They played with their hair, and they didn't meet the investigators' eyes. Shelia even apparently believed she could beat a lie detector test, and it inadvertently added doubt to her ever-changing story. Like, fucking for real, guys. Like, if you are ever brought to a police station for any fucking reason whatsoever, do not do a lie detector test. There's absolutely no reason. Like, it's inadmissible anyways. You can't use it. The police only do this to intimidate you. And, just don't do it. Don't do it whether you're guilty or innocent. Just lawyer up no matter what. Don't think that you're helping them out and proving your innocence by doing it. Just don't. It's fucking stupid. But anyways, Shelia thought she was going to be awesome and beat it. Despite the suspicious behavior, authorities couldn't charge the duo with anything until they could find the proof or get a confession. But she did not pass that lie detector test. Star City police officer Jessica Colbanks noticed that the girls' stories were exactly the same. And there's never a time that both people's story is ever exactly the same, unless, of course, it's rehearsed. So everything in Jessica's gut was telling her Shelia is acting wrong and Rachel is scared to death. But without any legitimate cause to make an arrest, the police had to keep investigating, and the Neese family had to continue to endure an agonizing wait before the truth about their daughter would finally come out. Fortunately, social media offered some clues. As I mentioned earlier, all three of the girls were very, very active on Twitter and Facebook. The afternoon before Skylar disappeared, she tweeted, "Sick of being at fucking home. Thanks, friends. Love hanging out with you all too." The day before that, Skylar posted, "You doing shit like that is why I can never completely trust you." It seemed like the rift in the trio provided some solid evidence that perhaps Shelia Eddy and Rachel Shoaf has something to do with Skylar's disappearance. Chris Berry, a state trooper assigned to the case in August 2012, always believed that any murderer could not conceal what they had done for very long. And in some cases, Berry had seen, the murderers would even brag about their deeds. And he had a feeling that this was one of those cases, and thus believed that Rachel Shoaf and Shelia Eddy would come to confess in time. Berry decided to create a fake online persona as an attractive teenage boy. Catfish! Let me know if you've ever been catfished. DM me on Always Talking Crime Podcast on Instagram, or email me at alwaystalkingcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Because for real, I want to hear catfish stories. Please. I have catfish stories of my own that I can share with you at a later time, but this is fucking awesome, guys. Like, this cop created a fake online persona, and he was like acting like he was this like hot teenage guy who attended West Virginia University in Morgantown, and he scoured Facebook and Twitter, linking up finally with both Shelia and Rachel. After this, investigators used this access to get some insight on the mental states of Shelia and Rachel from their posts on social media. Investigators observed that Shelia was like so perky, while Rachel was seemingly reserved and like super quiet online. Neither one of the girls even hinted that they were upset about their best friend's disappearance, though. Shelia tweeted about mundane things and even posted a photo of her and Rachel together. Some posts were odd, such as the one on November 5th, 2012, that said, "No one on this earth can handle me and Rachel. If you think you can, you're wrong." You like how I read that? All right, stupid bitch. All right, I just want to slap her. Let me just say that right now. All right, so anyways, guys, meanwhile, Shelia and Rachel began hearing things on social media that began to make them feel really nervous, as it should. Some people on Twitter outright accused them of having committed the murder and told them it was just a matter of time before they would be caught. Which is funny because I would be one of those people that would say something like that, which is super cool that there's a lot of people out there like me. The authorities continually brought them both in for interviews. Could you imagine, trying to live your life and do your thing, and the cops keep bringing you in, and then you go. You come in again, and then you go. And you have to try to remember the exact same story, right? You have to say things in the same way. You can't deviate from the story. So I'm sure they were annoyed, but who gives a fuck about them? Because you'll soon find out that, they're both pieces of fucking, I don't even want to say dog shit, because I have 2 dogs, and I fucking love my dogs. They're my babies. But, their shit is even too good to call these 2 girls. So, I don't know, but they're big pieces of something. But anyways, over time, Shelia and Rachel both became more secluded from their other friends and relied more on each other. Oh my gosh, can you hear my animals? So one of my dogs, Juliet, was on the couch, and then my kitten, Jasmine, she just got spayed. It was a little over a week ago, maybe not even a week and a half ago. But anyway, she jumped up on the couch with Juliet to snuggle. And then I don't know what happened because I was talking to y'all. And then all of a sudden Jasmine just started bitching about something. I'm sure you guys could hear it. I can't wait to hear it back. It's going to be funny. But anyways, let's go on back up to the story. So the cop, Cole Bank, realized that the car in the security footage belonged to Shoaf and Eddy. Authorities cross-referenced surveillance footage from nearby businesses of that July night. They found the same car that picked up Skylar Neese near a convenience store in Blackstone, West Virginia, which was west of Star City in Morgantown. But both Shelia and Rachel had said over and over again that they had gone east on the night of Skylar's disappearance. So the girls were caught in a motherfucking lie. Oh, yeah. But while the evidence continued to point to Skylar Neese's best friends as her killers, the police still didn't have enough to charge them. So it would take a confession to finally close the case. Dun, dun, dun. The stress and strain of concealing their crime continued to take its toll on Rachel and Shelia. On December 28th, 2012, a frantic parent called 911 and said, "I have an issue with a 16-year-old daughter of mine. I can't control her anymore. She's hitting us. She's screaming. She's running through the neighborhood." The caller was Patricia Shoaf, who was Rachel's mother. In the background, you could hear Rachel crying uncontrollably. She was screaming things like, "Give me the phone! no, this is over. This is over. And then to the dispatcher, Patricia Shoaf said, hey, my husband's trying to contain her. Please hurry. Rachel Shoaf was primed at this point to confess, and authorities picked her up. Soon after, she told them the horrifying truth about Skylar's murder. We stabbed her, Rachel blurted out. Like, could you imagine? We stabbed her. That's all she said. And as she continued talking after that, the grim truth about the case of Skylar Neese only became more and more clear. As Rachel told it, her and Shelia had planned the murder of Skylar Neese an entire fucking month in advance. Yes, 1 fucking month in advance. So they knew a month ahead of time that they were going to do it, and they hung out with her that entire month between planning to fucking kill her and fucking killing her. One day, they were actually in science class, and they agreed that maybe they should kill her. They planned on carrying out the murder just before Rachel left for summer camp. On the night of the murder, Shelia and Rachel invited Skylar to sneak out with them. Now, at this time, Skylar was initially hesitant about going after recently falling out with the two because, she just wasn't feeling it anymore. She, sensed the distance. She sensed that the other two girls were closer. And, her feelings were, literally hurt. And, that makes me, super sad. I've been in that position before. And, it's not a fun position to be in. But after a series of phone calls and texts from both the other girls, Skylar unfortunately changed her mind and she went. Not only did Shelia and Rachel plan Skylar's murder, but they also outfitted the trunk of Sheila's car with a quote-unquote serial killer kit. It consisted of towels, bleach, a shovel, a change of clothes for each of the girls. In addition, they packed the knives they used to stab Skylar. Both girls wore hooded sweatshirts, and they concealed the knives in the front pockets of their hoodies. Their plan was to kill Skylar, dispose of her body, change their clothes, and head back home as if nothing even happened. At approximately 12:30 a.m., Skylar Neese climbed out of her bedroom window. She crossed the street and she got into the back seat of Shoaf and Eddy's 4-door sedan. The three girls then headed northwest from Star City towards Blackville via U.S. Route 19. The perpetrators had planned to travel along West Virginia Route 7, but they turned around after spotting a state patrol car. They eventually arrived at their destination just across the Pennsylvania state border, and it was a spot where all three of the girls had occasionally smoked pot before. So it wasn't anything weird to Skylar for them to go to this location. Once the girls were all out of the vehicle, Shelia and Rachel told Skylar, oops, they had forgotten to bring a lighter. So Skylar volunteered to go back to the vehicle to get her own lighter. Once Skylar had turned her back, the other two teenage girls counted to 3, which was their agreed upon signal, then began to stab Skylar repeatedly. Skylar attempted to run, but she was only able to run a few feet before Rachel tackled her to the ground and continued the vicious assault. Skylar managed to wrestle Rachel's knife from her, and in an apparent attack to defend herself, she cut Rachel Shoaf's ankle. Shelia continued to stab Neese until there was complete silence, and according to Rachel, Skylar's neck stopped making gurgling sounds. Oh my gosh, it just gives me the fucking creeps, honestly. And if you're the parent of a teenager, or if you've ever been the parent of a teenager, or if you have young children and someday you're going to have parents of teenagers, like, this should make your skin fucking crawl. Like, it's enough to make sure that you know who your kids are friends with. Like, it's just like, you just never fucking know. Like, this poor girl, it's so fucking heartbreaking. Especially because, like, I'm going to talk about it in a little bit. Like, you can still see all of Skylar's tweets, everything on her Facebook. You can still see all of Rachel and Sheila's tweets and Facebook posts. And they're still all out there. And it just makes the whole thing just incredibly eerie. And this is just heartbreaking, guys. In her dying breaths after being stabbed dozens and dozens and dozens of times, Skylar Neese said, "Why?" Shelia and Rachel attempted to bury the body. They were dragging Skylar to the side of the road, but the road ran along a creek and the soil there was too hard and rocky for them to dig a hole and bury her. So instead, these dumbasses just covered Skylar's body with rocks, fallen branches, and a bunch of dirt. Then they returned to the car to clean themselves and the murder scene, and then they left and went home. In early January 2013, after Rachel's like crazy outbursts, and her mom calling 911, she ended up taking the investigators to the rural woods where she and Shoaf and Eddy had killed Skylar Neese. Only since it was winter, it was covered in snow, and she didn't really remember the exact location where they left the body. Now, police could not initially find Skylar, but due to Rachel's confession, authorities soon charged Rachel with murder. After that, the authorities' final break came a week later when they did find Skylar's body. It was nearly unidentifiable in the woods, which I couldn't even say that word because it's like my mouth wouldn't allow myself to say it. It's just so heartbreaking. It wouldn't be until March 13th, almost 3 months later, that a crime lab could officially confirm that the body was that of Skylar Neese. So that's how badly the body was decomposed. This was in January and she was killed in July, and her body was just like left out there. Like, she wasn't even buried. She was just covered with shit. And then it snowed. It's fucking West Virginia. So, it took them some time to be able to make the confirmation that it was Skylar before they could proceed. So it was after Skylar's body was recovered that Shelia took to Twitter and posted the following. Like, this bitch, like, this is why I want to fucking punch her. Like, so many reasons why I'd like to punch her. But this is what she fucking posted on Twitter. "Rest easy, Skylar. You'll always be my best friend. I miss you more than you could ever know." And another one soon after that said, this is fucking creepy as fuck. This is what she said. "We really did go on 3. Like, can you fucking imagine? Like, literally, guys, these tweets are still on Shelia Eddy's Twitter account. Like, you can, like, Google them. Like, you will see them. And it is just so crazy. And I'm not on Twitter, so, like, I can't see like all the different comments and everything, but like you can actually see the literal tweets, and like it makes me fucking sick. Investigators matched blood samples in Shelia Eddy's trunk to Skylar's DNA, and Yes, Sheila Eddy was arrested on May 1st, 2013. It was in the parking lot of a Cracker Barrel restaurant. So she was there with her mom having lunch. And I'm not sure, like different things have said that maybe Sheila's mom kind of knew that Sheila was going to be arrested and took Sheila out for lunch or invited Sheila out for lunch so that she wouldn't get arrested at school or at their home and like so all the neighbors could see. But anyways, she was arrested right then and there at Cracker Barrel restaurant. And I love Cracker Barrel. I love breakfast food at Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel. And I love like the little stores with all like the old school like candies. It's super cool. So if you don't live in an area that has a Cracker Barrel, I feel sorry for you. My condolences. And if you ever travel to a place that has a Cracker Barrel restaurant, like you totally need to go. It is just so amazing and fun. I love it, love it, love it. In fact, I haven't been to one for a while, and there's one about 10 miles away here in Pensacola. So I'm feeling a trip to the Cracker Barrel coming on here pretty soon. So several of Sheila and Rachel's high school classmates started to come forward after the two girls had been arrested. An unnamed student even testified that he had overheard the two girls discussing how they murdered and disposed of Skylar's body. However, the classmates didn't say anything to the authorities at first because, like, he totally believed that the girls were just joking. But once he realized what actually happened and they found Skylar's body, the classmate contacted the police. Authorities are uncertain of Sheila and Rachel's actual motive in killing their friend. Although Skylar's social media posts in the weeks before the murder hinted at a rift in their friendships, when they were questioned, Rachel told authorities that she and Eddie simply grew bored with Skylar and just didn't like her anymore. Like, which is, like, fuck you. Like, you don't kill somebody because you don't like them anymore. You just don't be their fucking friend anymore. On May 1st, 2013, Rachel Shoaf pled guilty to second-degree murder. According to Rachel's plea agreement, she pled guilty to murder in the second degree by unlawfully, feloniously, willfully, maliciously, and intentionally causing the death of Skylar Neese by stabbing her and causing fatal injuries. In this plea agreement, the state of West Virginia recommended a sentence of 20 years incarceration. Rachel's family issued a public apology for her actions through their lawyer. I can't even imagine, like, how it would feel to, like, if one of my kids when they were teenagers had done something like this. Like, I can't imagine. Like, I can't imagine either side, honestly. I can't imagine, like, being the parent of the murdered child, and I cannot fathom, like what I would do if my child was the actual murderer. Like, honestly, I feel bad for both of those families that what they have to endure because of these selfish fucking bitches, you know? I mean, the families are going to suffer for a long time. And I say this mostly because, like, I have a history of, like, crazy fucking things that have gone on in my family tree and things that I've had to overcome personally because of other people's actions. And I wasted a lot of my time, a lot of my years, like my entire 20s especially, like even longer than that, honestly, but I wasted a lot of time blaming myself or being stressed about or being embarrassed about things that other people in my immediate family did. And, that wasn't anything that I did, but I took it upon myself. So, it really makes me feel for Rachel and Sheila's families because, we don't know what their home life was like, but all three of these girls were only children. So I can't imagine having one child and either having that child be killed or having that child be a killer. It's unfathomable to me. So, but anyways, following Rachel's guilty plea on May 1st, Rachel did receive a sentence on February 25th of 2014. It was a sentence of 30 years in prison, and she will be eligible for parole after 10 years. So right now, she is currently incarcerated at the Lakin Correctional Center in West Virginia, and she has reportedly, which is interesting, she's reportedly married another woman while in custody. So this is really interesting because, one of the motives, the rumor, why they wanted to kill Skylar so bad is because Skylar supposedly was in the presence of the other two teenage girls while they were having sex together. So all of them were in, I don't know if it was, I think it couldn't have been Rachel's because they were super Christian. It was probably Sheila's room, and they were drinking vodka. They had a bottle of vodka, and supposedly Rachel and Shelia just started making out in front of Skylar. And Skylar was just kind of sitting there oh my gosh, what do I do? Imagine hanging out with two of your girlfriends or whatever, two of your friends, and then they just start making out, and then they took off their clothes. I have the hiccups now, sorry. I don't know how that happened suddenly. But anyways, imagine sitting there and your friends started making out, and then they take off their clothes and they start literally having sex in front of you. That's the most awkward thing. It would be awkward to me now at my age if that just suddenly happened. But imagine being a teenage girl and it just happening. So Skylar, I guess, was just sitting there in the corner in a chair drinking her vodka, and she couldn't leave the room because then it would wake up, Sheila's parents. And it was just kind of crazy to think about. And that's a possible motive. They wanted to shut her up because maybe they were afraid that Skylar was going to spill the beans about the fact that they were lesbians together. And at first I was kind of no, that's probably just a rumor. It's probably didn't really happen. But now that it's been confirmed that Rachel has married a woman while she's in prison, she's the one that is super she went to the Catholic summer camp and everything and has the Christian upbringing. She was probably really, really afraid that her parents were going to find out that her and Shoaf and Eddy were in a relationship together or in love or whatever, or just having sex, bumping uglies, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure they're ugly. I'm sure whatever they were bumping together was super fucking ugly. But anyways, Shoaf and Eddy was charged with first-degree murder, and she pled guilty in January of 2014. Now, Shelia was confident in her prospects in court since she didn't confess until a week before her trial. Although there was little tangible evidence tying Shelia to the crime, Rachel Shoaf was willing and ready to testify against her. Shelia received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 15 years. Shelia was emotionless when the court handed the verdict. Shelia fucking refused to apologize to the victims and even express any fucking kind of regret for what she had done to Skylar. Shelia is also still incarcerated in Lacan Correctional Center. So they are at the same place. I heard that they're not connected anymore. They're not, they don't hang out or see each other. I think that maybe Shelia is in like a higher level of incarceration than maybe Rachel is, but I'm not really sure. But the girls are not friends. They're not like lesbian lovers anymore or anything. So David Neese, Skylar's dad, says that those two girls did not deserve leniency from the courts. He said they're both sickos and they're both exactly where they need to be, away from civilization, locked up like animals, because that's what they are. They're animals. And I agree, Dave. I agree with you. They are animals. The mourning father occasionally visits a certain tree in the woods in Pennsylvania, and he created a beautiful memorial for his daughter Skylar at the site of her vicious and senseless murder. Dave said, "I wanted to take the horrible thing that happened here and try to turn it into something good. A place that people can come and remember Skylar and remember the good little girl that she was, and not the little beast that they treated her like." The Neese family, this is awesome, you guys. The Neese family also helped to pass Skylar's law, which requires that the state of West Virginia issue Amber Alerts for all missing children, even those not believed to be kidnapped. Although this may not have saved Skylar's life, it probably wouldn't have, because by the time they realized she was gone, she was already dead. So, like, it literally would not have helped. But although it wouldn't have helped because she was killed because her parents realized she was missing, this new system in West Virginia may very well save so many more lives through timely notices of missing children. And guys, that is the story of Skylar Neese. It just gives me chills. It makes me so sad that such a young life was just gone. So I guess my only advice would be, if you have kids, talk to them about bullying. Ask them if they're being bullied. I know it's hard to get kids to talk, especially like my kids are grown now, but when they were teenagers, they didn't always like to talk, especially my daughters, because I've been married twice, guys, and I had my 3 daughters with my first ex-husband, and he doesn't talk. He doesn't communicate about anything. Neither does like anybody in his family. Like, they all shut down. Nobody communicates. Nobody talks. And that's exactly what my daughters are like. So it would have been like really difficult to open up this conversation with them. But, you know, like, there's been other recent things that have happened. Like, there's a case where a kid killed a girl. I believe it was in Jacksonville. Yeah, guys, I just looked it up real quick because I couldn't remember her name. But Tristan Bailey died last May. It was Mother's Day weekend, and she was stabbed like 114 times by this kid named Aiden Fucci. And he had like been talking about stabbing someone to death like about a month before actually killing Tristan. But she was 13 years old and she was in the 7th grade. And like, this is still pending. And the mom of Aiden Fucci was also implicated because what she did is when she found out about the murder, she went into her son's bedroom and took his laundry that was like full of blood and like rinsed them out in the sink, so she got all the blood out. And then she ended up being like charged for, I can't think of the word. But anyways, she was implicated. They were both charged. And there's going to be a court date coming up. I think not until November of this year. But this is just like another case. I mean, and I know there were like the Slender Man stabbings. I'm sure I'll talk about that on a future episode. But it's just crazy. This Aiden Fucci, like, he was a fucking, like, animal. Like, if I could get my hands on this guy, it's a kid, but, like, oh my gosh, like, he, like, put on Snapchat, when he got arrested, he was put in the police car, right? And he took a selfie of himself and posted it on fucking Snapchat with his peace fingers out and the caption, "Hey guys, has anyone seen Tristan lately?" Like, that's, like, if this is what the world is coming to, like, with our youth, like, I don't even want to be on this planet anymore, But, I mean, not everybody's like that, but it just makes me feel so sad. I can't even imagine what the home of Skylar Neese is like. I can't imagine how Dave and Mary are like trying to get on with their lives. I mean, gosh, it's like 8 years later, and like, how do you fucking move on? I mean, while all the other students in the town were like growing up and going to prom and graduation and everything like that, it's like Skylar was just gone. I mean, I would really, really love to see Rachel Shoaf and Shelia Eddy be incarcerated like forever, or something like really, really bad to happen to them, like somebody fucking counts to 3 and stabs them dozens and dozens of times all over their body. But anyways, that's just me. But anyways, guys, I hope that you're enjoying this podcast as much as I am, because I'm having a fucking blast. If you have any stories that you would like me to cover, any certain cases, give them to me. I have a big, long list of cases that I plan on doing. But if anybody recommends cases that are already on my list, that's going to make me, boom, put that case at the top of my list. And I'm like excited to hear about if any of my listeners are, if they have any like cases that I haven't heard about yet or I forgot about. Oh yeah, and I also want to call out to Brazil, because I have someone in Brazil listening to this podcast, and fuck yeah, I think that's really fucking cool. So I've got Brazil, Canada, and the US so far on this podcast. Lots of states. I tried to figure out like which ones of my friends are like listening from all the different states, but I'm not really sure. I'm planning on growing this community as large as I can. I have like some really cool things coming up, like I've said before. So keep sharing this podcast. If you are listening, whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on, please do me a favor and hit the follow button, because you guys, like, hitting the follow button is huge. The more people that follow my podcast on every platform, the more my podcast gets noticed. If you are listening on a platform that allows you to review it, please give me a review. 5 stars would be awesome, but I do want you to be honest. Like, this is new. What is this, like episode 6? Like, I plan on getting to like episode 6,000 at least. But I mean, it's going to be a learning process as I go along. I'm not perfect. If I make any mistakes or say something wrong or leave something out, feel free to let me know. And, I can like always come back at a future episode and like, give everybody some notes about how I forgot something or I got something wrong or I said something wrong. It's cool. I just love you guys. And I love that there's so many of you already listening to this podcast. And I've really only, up until this point, released 5 episodes. And like, I have another podcast. I started another podcast more about like relationships and life struggles and how I kind of get through life, because like I've had a lot of fucking shit that has gone on in my life. And I decided to start learning how to podcast and talk about all those things. And it's kind of therapy to me. And I really wanted to reach out and help maybe other people, mostly women, but people in general, like kind of get through those struggles and learn how to make your life better. Maybe learn how to have a positive attitude and all these things. And I'm still doing that podcast. But this was the podcast from the very, very beginning that I wanted to do. But guys, like, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. It's like so scary for me to say out loud. But I was scared. I was scared to do this podcast. I was scared to do a true crime podcast. There's so many other ones. And finally, like, I just started like branching out. Like, I have my favorites, but I started listening to other ones and I was like, okay, like, that was all right, but like, I could probably do better. And the more and more I started to feel that way, I finally was like, okay, well, there's listeners for every podcast. So you may like me, you may not like me. And it's cool if you don't. It's even better if you do. But like, everybody has like different things that they're attracted to. Like, I'm not like really loving some of the podcasts with all the banter in the beginning. Like, if you're going to talk more than like 5 minutes about shit that's going on, like, I'm out of here. Like, I just want to hear about true crime. Like, when I first started listening to podcasts, I was listening to one in particular because my hairdresser friend recommended them to me, and they're still okay. But if it's an hour and a half episode, they literally spend like over 30 minutes just talking about shit that's not even fucking true crime. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, get your own like little side podcast talking about all your shit. Just so you know, my other podcast is called Always Talking Shit. Keep the podcast fucking separate. You know what I mean? But anyways, guys, I so appreciate you. I'm so glad that you're listening. Please let me know how you enjoy my episodes. You can reach me, like I said earlier, via email at alwaystalkingcrimepodcast@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram, Always Talking Crime. And, whatever, like, if you know me personally, like, my Facebook, my Instagram, all that kind of stuff. But I'm just going to keep pumping out these episodes every Sunday. And coming up very soon, I'm going to be giving you guys options to get 1 or 2 extra episodes every single month. And there's going to be some merch involved and maybe some live stories, like me telling like a true crime story live, which kind of like makes me so nervous to think about because like, it's super scary. But eventually I'm going to do stuff like that. So I have big plans for this podcast. I hope you all do too. And thanks for listening. And even more, thanks for always talking crime.